Hello everyone, Nikki Batgirl D'Angelo here for another Star Citizen Annex Anonymous ship review. And today we're going to be talking about the Vanduul Scythe, specifically the Captured Vanduul Scythe that's available to those that purchased early on in the Star Citizen crowdfunding campaign, or are imperators that can actually buy it in the electronic access store for rec. In other words, you'll only be able to see it here in Arena Commander. Now, the first thing you'll notice about the Vanduul Scythe is that it is a tremendously large craft for a fighter. And it is very nimble nonetheless, but we have to remember that the average height of a Vanduul is around 7 feet 1 inch, where the average height of a human pilot is right between 5'8" for females, 5'5" for females, I'm not sure, and about 5'10", 5'11" for males. This ship is gorgeous in its own way, but the Vanduul don't take a lot of time to smooth out surfaces. They build the armor that they need onto it, but really it's very sharp and hard edges and curves to it. It's not very pretty to look at. It's so ugly it's beautiful. That's a way to look at it. It's got more of a organic design to it, something like a bird, but we can get into it a little bit more. Now, the Scythe really is purpose-built to take out medium to larger fighters and spacecraft, and you can tell by its weapon loadout, the plasma cannon, the neutron cannon, and 2 lasers. That's what it's purpose-built for. But it is highly maneuverable and still devastatingly accurate enough to take on more nimble ships like the Hornet, or much more nimble ships like a Gladius. In packs, these things are killer. Now, the large wing off to one side that gives its asymmetrical shape is actually a weapon also. It's used to cut right through the armor of larger ships. It could also be devastating to any smaller ship it might come into contact with. It's got many more missiles than we're allowed to fire so far in the Arena Commander. I could only get off about 5, but I count at least 10 on this ship right now. It's just a gorgeous ship. Now, we don't know much about the Vanduul, although Vanduul Veronica, one of the members of the Enablers, will insist that they're peace-loving beings. We know differently. We know that they have ill regard for human or Xi'an life, and they'd rather devastate whole colonies instead of just take out the military targets. Here in the cockpit, you'll see that you sit down in a lying down position. Now, the physiological differences between Vanduul and the human beings made it very difficult for the modifications for humans to fly this ship. Nonetheless, it's been done, but you got to be very careful. In real life, if you were to fly something like this without inertial dampeners, you would really be pushing the blood into different parts of your body. So there you have the exterior and interior of the ship. I'm not going to get into too much detail today. Today is going to be about the other pieces. How does this thing fly? Many changes have been made to the flight models within the game since the last time I did one of these reviews, so it might be just a tad bit unfair. What you see happening right now is the virus, the human virus that takes over the Vanduul ship when you get into it, to give us a HUD that we could read. Now, the many changes to the flight model have to do with weights, the way boost works, and I guess there's some other idiosyncrasies in there that I don't know about. So it's going to cause me in this review to take out a Hornet and take out a Gladius to see what's going on. This ship is very twitchy, very hard to maneuver into place for me. I bet you it's probably a little bit easier for somebody flying with mouse and keyboard to use, but since the weapons on it are not gimbaled, they're probably going to have complaints in that direction instead. The flight model itself seems a little bit well, you'll see. When I fly out the Hornet, it slides all over the place, and this thing doesn't tend to slide as much. It tends to keep moving its velocity vector in the way that you point it. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to get my sights on, and I'll play with my curves throughout this match to see if I can make it any more accurate. Now, the AI has changed up its little dance Where in the past it used to run around in circles at times, here it finds that if it could keep you at bay, like say you're the same speed or slower, they're going to move away from you and use the decoupled mode to fire back at you. And it is a pretty good tactic and something I myself have done, so I'm pretty impressed with the AI in that way. But it's very difficult in any spacecraft to line up a Vanduul when it gets over 500 or 600 meters away because they're so skinny. So using something like the missiles that come on this ship came in handy in that particular case. Now, I still find that the ship is much more maneuverable than I thought it was going to be. It's also, regardless of the negative things you hear coming out of my mouth, a very fun ship to fly, and definitely worth at least a 1-month subscription as an Imperator to check it out and see how it works. And that's for those of you that also would want the other pieces of the subscription, like the vault that has all the work in progress photos, and you can probably download all of the jump points in that particular time. But nonetheless, I get in here and I start finding that I am having a hell of a time, up to 5 or 6 minutes per ship, trying to destroy it. So what I did, and we're going to break here, is I took out the Hornet to see if it was any better. Let's see how the Hornet fared before we come back and finish up my Scythe review. Yes, the Hornet is coming in after it's already been destroyed. I came in, or spawned in the middle of the asteroid field here in Dying Star. And I turned away from it, and it took forever for the nose to come around, and I crashed into an asteroid and died. Meanwhile, I thought I had been flying forward and was not actually paying attention. I had very bad situational awareness at the time. I was talking to my son. So I've already lost one of my weapons. Nonetheless, I keep hitting things, and look at this. The velocity vector hasn't come around yet. Still hasn't come around. Look at the speed. I have to boost my way around it. They've very much increased the weight of this ship and decreased by far how the maneuvering thrusters are working. Sorry, very frustrated there. I'm not being critical right now. I know there's a lot of balancing going on, so I know they're not done. But it does make the Hornet quite a different animal to fly from last I flew it. It makes it more like what they did, I guess it was about 3/4 of a year ago. 6, 7, 8, 9 months ago, when they accidentally increased the weight values of some of the Hornets and then made them slide all around like they do here. Nonetheless, the weapons loadout here on the Hornet is much better than, in my opinion, for me, for my flying, for the way I fight, than what I had on the Scythe, and it made it very easy for me to get through here and hit rocks and to get kills, though you're not going to see that here. I was much more effective once I learned how to fly in this slip-sliding manner. And we're going to jump on to the next fighter, which is actually a much better rendition of how I expect the spaceships to fly here in Star Citizen for them to be fun. So I had a completely brand new install of Star Citizen for this particular video, and it meant that my curves and everything else were not set up. Well, here I am booting into my Gladius, nothing has happened, and look at the blood all over the inside of my face mask. Man, I must have had something really, really bad to drink or eat before this flight to have that much blood on the front of my helmet. Anyway, this is a much more maneuverable fighter. So I'm starting to get an idea of where we're going with the balance of power in the spaceships that Roberts Space Industries, Origin Jump Works, Aegis Dynamics are delivering. And I know that we have other ones. I'm just going to stop there. And it's really a rock, paper, scissors game in terms of how these fighters are going to be. And I see the Hornet and I see the Scythe as taking out light capital and frigates, corvettes, things like that. I see that's what their main role is. And here in the Gladius, I see it as more of an escort role to take out these ships to make them so they are less likely to do harm to our bigger ships. So I can see that as a balance, and I'm impressed with it, but I'm not sure if that's what they in particular had in mind. I'm going to go around in circles for a while with this guy, and after a while of getting used to the ship, I actually do very well inside of the Gladius. And of course, if I had upgraded the weapons to what I normally take, I probably would have had this guy down already. Normally, I'll take off the gimbals on the two CF007s and put up CS 117s, CF117s, and I have a lot more fun and a lot more firepower with those. I expect that this rock, paper, scissors game is going to flesh itself out once we get 2.0 of Arena Commander done and posted. Until then, I think that we're going to be looking at the different ships and just going, what is this one for, what is that one for, as they build out the flight models. So maybe this is a cart before the horse, maybe it was a mistake, maybe it's working as intended, I don't know. Nonetheless, I think that I have a lot more fun in fighters like the Mustang Delta and the Gladius than I am in the Scythe and the Hornet. So let's get back to the Scythe and finish up my review. Here I am back on the Scythe, still a little bit frustrated, still wondering what's going on here. Like I said, it took me a little while. It took me about 10 or 15 minutes of flying the Scythe. And mind you, I have probably 100 hours right now into the Gladius and the Hornet, and only a few minutes in the Scythe. So I don't want this to be sounding like I'm being negative. I know I'll figure this spacecraft out. I know it will get its balance, and I know it will be fun to fly later on. But I'm starting to see the big picture, and the big picture is how battles will be taking place inside of the universe. And I'm sure that's the way it's going to play out inside of Squadron 42. And it comes from my familiarity with the Chris Roberts products like Wing Commander and Privateer and Freelancer. Every ship is going to react differently, and that's a big duh, right? But every one of us, when we buy a ship, we want it to be the end-all, be-all, and to be best at everything there is. The best trader, the best fighter, the best stealth, the best defense, and that's just not the way it is. So whereas the Hornet has, in my opinion, better firepower, the Scythe can take a boatload of damage. I mean, you could be firing at the Scythe, and it is just going to keep on shaking off those hits. And that's why I don't have a problem moving my shields to full and chasing this guy down, and he's firing his plasma neutron cannon at me. When I did this in my Gladius, one hit from the plasma cannon and I was done. So pretty impressed with how heavy duty the armor is, as well as the shields are on this spacecraft. It's probably not the spacecraft for me, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue to fly it. I think that many of you have purchased it or are renting it from the rec store are going to be very happy with it, as I am. It's just not going to be my first choice. It's going to be my nostalgia choice or my fun choice. I keep finding my way back into smaller fighters, like the Delta and like the Gladius. I love how nimble they are and how they can pirouette and just rip somebody apart with their Gatling cannons or the rockets on the Mustang Delta. Nonetheless, I still have the fear of God in me when there's a Scythe on my tail, so I do respect it, and I do think it's a wonderful ship. Thank God they finally got it into the game for us to fly. The model is one of the best I've seen so far. It's just a beautiful job at putting this ship together. And I am getting more and more impressed with where the game is going as time goes on. And of course, we haven't seen much more than Arena Commander, but over the next 3 months, our eyes are going to start to spin around in their sockets as CIG starts to bring us out a boatload of additions to the fun that we've been given over the last 2 years. Well, folks, that's my Scythe review. If you weren't lucky enough to get one like I wasn't when they were on sale, you at least have the consolation of being able to purchase them inside of the Electronic Access Store for REC credit, or rec credit, That's weird. Rec credits is kind of redundant. But for rec, and of course, you need to be an Imperator to do so. You get a 7-day for, I think it was 30k. And that's all I got for you. And with that said, you all be safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon. And make sure you check your 6. You never know if I'm the Scythe behind you now. Later, folks.